historian. Yes, indeed I am. Hi, how's everyone doing? Yeah. Well, things have actually been kind of quiet these past 2 weeks around here. Cedric's been oddly well behaved. My YouTube channel's actually been getting some attention lately, and things are, for the most part, pretty good. I mean, the biggest challenge I've faced with regards to my life as the Space Quest historian is actually the realization that there are only 4 episodes left of this season, including this one, and I've actually got an abundance of material left. In fact, way more than there's actually room for in just 4 episodes. You see, as you may have, heard in previous episodes throughout the season, I've been alternating between my music talk with Ken, Brandon, and James, and my trip down memory lane with the good Dr. Jess Morissette. And at the start of the season, I was actually thinking, holy crap, I hope there's enough in there to last me a season. Or season. I don't know what a season is, but it sounds vaguely Asian. But yeah, I was just thinking, oh my god, I hope I have enough material to cover the entire season, and, I could have just, started counting episodes like a professional would at the start of the season, but I didn't, because I'm not one. So fact of the matter is, even if I do start playing both segments in one episode, as I said I was considering doing in the previous episode, I still have too much material left, and the episodes would be way, way long, and I don't really want to overstay my welcome with these episodes, because I think like an hour is pretty good for the sort of show I'm doing. And well, I guess they're already pretty long, but I think an hour is a pretty good one. But if I had to include both segments, I would run up against, I don't know, maybe 2 hours or something. I think that's a bit long. I mean, it's not Square Waves FM long, but still. Hi, Brian. Hi, Bianca. So actually, I'm at a bit of a loss as to, what to do.
You could always just give up now. It's not like anyone's listening to your pathetic waste of oxygen.
Oh, hey, that's not nice. I get comments. I know for a fact people listen to this.
Oh, yeah? Any of them that aren't already friends of yours?
Well, I don't...
What's your stats? Huh? Come on. I want figures. I want numbers.
Actually, I don't have access to those stats. The Space Pope does the distribution for this show, so he's got
So, to recap, you're really just spewing this filth out of your mouth, Hatch, and a handful of people who are doing you the courtesy of hitting play, then mute, just to make you feel special.
I'm pretty sure that's not the case.
But you don't know for sure.
Will you get off my case? Sheesh. I even started this episode by saying how well behaved you've been these past couple of weeks. I mean, does turning this mic on just bring out your asshole-ish side or something?
Spare me your feeble attempts at insults, organ sack. I've been busy cultivating my network, reaching out to like-minded people.
You mean people from Norway in metal bands?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I received an invitation a week ago to become the lyricist for an up-and-coming orchestra residing in Nuvsvåg.
Where the hell is that?
I'm told it's the premiere area for true connoisseurs of my new musical passion.
You mean Norwegian black metal? Wait a minute. I'm looking this up on Google Maps. Holy crap. You zoom in on this and there's like nothing. There aren't even there are no streets. There's like a highway running through it, and there are only 3 street view photos, and they're all taken by the same random dude with his mobile phone.
Yes, it's perfect, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll say. This looks more remote than an Arctic military base. What's this band called anyway?
Fjørfjellsfimbul.
Come again?
Fjørfjellsfimbul.
What's that mean?
Not sure. But it sounds delightfully ominous and foreboding, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, anything that'll get you out of my hair, I'm all for it. Can I get back to my ranting, please?
Oh, by all means, human filth. Continue moaning about your first world problems. I'm off to write some lyrics for my upcoming audition. Which reminds me, can you think of a word that rhymes with genicapitation?
Genicapitation? Is that even a word?
Sure it is. It's when you lop the front bit of a male person.
Yeah, I think I got it. No, I can't think of anything. Just go look it up in a rhyming dictionary or something. Anyway, to get back on track here, I've been toying with a few answers to my, having too much stuff riddle. My first idea was to just play both segments in the same episode, but as I said, that will still leave me with extra material that I can't squeeze into the episodes, and the episodes would run a bit longer than I want them to. So my second idea, and this is the one I'll probably go with, is to actually extend the season with some extra episodes. I mean, smaller episodes, because I only planned for 12 episodes for this season, and there are only 12 parts of the other regular segments with Pete and Serena, so they'll really just be like small extra episodes to get the remaining material out. And I thought maybe I could, talk a bit behind the scenes-ish about the season that you have just witnessed, or whatever, like little tiny extra morsels. On the plus side, since these episodes won't be as big and hefty as these regular episodes, I'll start putting out the extra episodes each week instead of each alternate weeks. After the regular season of these 12 episode wraps, every week you'll get we'll finish up these segments. So, that's my first world problem right there. Thanks, Cedric. And that's the solution I've come up with. Let me know what you think. I mean, I do have comment fields. I do have a Twitter @SQHistorian. Please let me know. So you'll get 12 regular episodes as planned, and then a handful of extra weekly episodes after that to finish off the talks I had with the good doctor and the talented musicians. Cool? Cool. In other news, we've actually been seeing some action over on this other podcast that I'm involved in, The Backseat Designers, co-hosted by myself and my friends Frederick and Gareth. Very top blokes. We have an awful lot of fun. It's an unscripted show, it's pretty off the rails, and we even get to swear a lot. So we've done 3 seasons of that show so far, and we did 2 seasons of our spin-off show, Open Crowdsource, where we invite guests into design an adventure game in 30 minutes or less, depending on random inputs from this thing that Fred invented. Anyway, tons of fun. Go check that out on backseatdesigners.com. But even though that show is actually on hiatus at the moment, we reconvened a couple of weeks ago, or maybe just 1 week ago. I don't know. I live in a time bubble. Anyway, we reconvened for a one-off special following the announcement of Infamous Quest shutting down. And we had Sean Mills, one of the co-founders of Infamous Quests, on as a special guest. And we talked a bit about the state of the adventure game community and why adventure games don't appear to be selling that well despite their recent rise in popularity. And Sean had some very choice words on the matter for Sierra fans and bundle deals and software pirates. It was fun. He fit right in. He swears like a sailor as well. It was fun. And he's a very, very honest guy. So if you want, the straight up sales figures from Infamous Quests and how many times they've been pirated versus how many times someone actually bought their games and stuff, go listen to that show. But during that show, sorry, tripped over my own words there. During that show, he also mentioned that the one exception to all this calamity seems to be Wadget Eye Games. The makers of Blackwell and Gemini Rue and Techno Babylon and all this stuff. They seem to be doing rather well despite the adventure games underperforming and sales wise. So as a follow-up, we decided to have another off-season special, which we recorded just this week, and it came out yesterday at the time of this episode's release. It came out on Tuesday in this week, and it's Wednesday now. Anyway, we had Dave Gilbert on the show, the head honcho over at Wadget Eye Games, to give his perspective on what Sean was saying in the previous special, and to perhaps, let us in on his secret to being so damn successful, which turns out is not that much of a secret, really. So anyway, those 2 special episodes of Backseat Designers are available for your listening pleasure over on backseatdesigners.com or on youtube.com/backseatdesigners, if that's your thing. And we are currently gearing up to have a 4th season of our podcast. And based on the, quite overwhelmingly positive reactions we've been getting for these 2 off-season specials, we're actually thinking of doing more shows with guest participants like Sean, like Dave and such. But anyway, check out backseatdesigners.com for all that stuff. But don't go anywhere just yet, because we still have some great stuff coming up on this show. So right, on to tonight's menu of delicacies. First up, we have some more crowdfunding tips from Serena Nelson, followed by another walk down memory lane with the good professor. And after soiling our collective brain parts with whatever sludge pours out of Pete Tolman's brain, we adjourn to the velour-draped parlor to have a chat with the High Cleric of Lovecraftian adventure game horror himself, Mr. Agustín Cordes of Senscape, proud parent of the mythical beast Scratches, instigator of the abominable Run Room... I should not do accents. One-room horror game, Serena. I just killed my own mood there, didn't I? Anyway, he's also soon to be curator of the terror-soaked hallways of the anticipated game Asylum. So, Mr. Cordes not only has the sexiest accent on the planet, but he's also a great fan of good horror and Space Quest. So, we're in for a hell of a treat right here. So, let's start off with the usual appetizers. First of all, let's have another scintillating round of sound advice on how to successfully crowdfund your next game with Serena Nelson. Take it away, Serena.
Hello and welcome to the next installment of Serena's Kickstarter Corner. Today I'll be continuing my discussion on communication, but instead of more general and broad topics, I'll be covering the ever-important updates and their social media counterparts. The trick is to use both, but how and when is as important as what you say. This covers updates made both during and long after your campaign ends. It's a juggling act that few have mastered, but with a little bit of nudging from the community as a whole, you should be able to hit that sweet spot you're looking for. Perhaps I should start off with just what an update is exactly. In short, it's an extension of the pitch. While the pitch should be enough to grab your attention and get you to back, it's usually not enough to get everything across that you want to, even during the campaign. Updates are the little tidbits and development previews that someone might not be interested in and can just ignore, but for someone that really wants to dig deep into the process, it could be worth reading everything that gets shown off. I know that I tend to at least scan through every email notification when one of the projects that I've backed have something interesting to say. With all that said, just what should be in an update? Well, pretty much anything you want. It can be pretty long or incredibly short, but it's there as a way to continue discussions beyond the ever-present comment section, and to show off assets as they come in. The sky is pretty much the limit as it is with social media like Facebook or Twitter. In fact, both go hand in hand. Just be sure not to focus on one over the other, or you might have some angry backers down the line. More on this in a bit. So, you know that you can talk about pretty much anything through an update, but what should you focus on? It, well, depends on your style of game and what you have ready. In the case of adventure games, you can never go wrong with screenshots during development, maybe a work in progress of a character animation, track of music or a snippet of a character's voice actor if there's one. Maybe you want to talk about a scene or a puzzle without being too spoilery. Go right ahead. Some people will read it, and even if nobody does, it's still there should they want to in the future. I've enjoyed quite a few behind-the-scenes looks at a number of games that I've backed just to get a glimpse as to what goes into building a world that I'll soon be playing. There is a balancing act as to just how much to show off or talk about in an update. While I've personally had no problem with it, sometimes an update can get rather lengthy and hard to read. At the same time, don't make it too short unless you've only got some minor news to give. There's no real hard science here though, just write about what you think is appropriate and when you're ready to post it. It all depends on what the update's about, so don't be shy if you've got a lot to say. With all that said, just how frequent should your updates be? Well, again, there's no hard science here, but generally it's accepted that during the course of a project's campaign period, to have roughly no more than one every day or two. More than that, and you risk people either walking away or just turning update notifications entirely. Which means that they might miss the important stuff like a new add-on or tier. After the month or however long you have it set up for, it becomes even less important how long between updates are. Just be sure not to put it off for too long, or people will think you've taken their money and running off to some tropical paradise. About once a month is good to keep communication going without flooding people's inboxes, but most are willing to go with like bi-weekly period. If months or even years go by with silence, then that's a major red flag that something not quite on the up and up is going on. I'll go into more detail on problem areas for backers in another episode, but do keep this all in mind. You don't want to worry your fans and backers just because you got nothing to say. Related to the above is the use of social media as a main platform. Sure, it's okay to show off stuff on Facebook or Twitter, but don't use it, forums, or your website as the primary or even only method of communication to your backers. Having backed over 300 projects myself, I can't be bothered having to sign up for hundreds of forums or to keep track of every Facebook page just to get that one important bit of news I've been waiting on. You don't need to post everything in Kickstarter as an update, but at least keep the important stuff there. Like things like release dates, trailers, beta announcements, whatnot. Again, don't leave everyone who's expecting at least semi-frequent posts on Kickstarter in the dark while you focus on other platforms. I know it's pissed me off on more than one occasion when I hear our project creators say that if you want news, sign up for the forum because that's all I'm posting to. We are your early adopters, and we shouldn't be expected to jump through hoops to get our info on your game. As an aside, a good number of adventure game projects also do tend to cross-promote their games through the use of updates. Shoutouts have been a popular way to get the attention of other interesting titles from ones that you're already giving money to. If you're looking to get more publicity, this is a free way to get it. Just try to make sure you give back if you're running at the same time. It's only fair. I've just barely touched the surface of what goes into updates, and there's a lot more that can be said, but that should be enough to get an idea of what backers expect beyond the pitch itself. Keep people informed about your progress during development and show that you're still there. Don't go completely dark or others will wonder where you ran off to. With that said, what should you do after the campaign ends beyond keeping them informed? That'll be the next topic that I cover.
Thank you so much, Serena. Cedric. Cedric!
Yeah? What is it?
What are you doing?
I'm composing a soliloquy of nihilistic damnation, you simpleton! What does it look like I'm doing? My taxes?
Yeah. Could you just keep it down for a bit? I'm trying to do a show here.
Yeah, your show. Always about your show, isn't it? How about you give me some fucking space this time?
Cedric!
No, I'm not even going to apologize for invoking such crass language. I have to get into this vernacular, sink my talons into the soul of the art. Tell me, if you had just eviscerated the uterus of a slave would you hate it to paint your like marmalade, or smear it across your face to spite the unborn fetus?
Ooh, tough choice. I think I'm gonna go with take a breather, you sick, twisted Oh, look, now you've even gotten me saying it. The Space Pope is not gonna be happy about this.
Look, you can worry about your boyfriend on your own time. I'm trying to create art here.
Just keep it down over there, okay? I'm trying to put on a family-friendly show here.
Yeah, I think that ship has sailed.
Okay, time to bring this back down to Earth with some pleasantness. How about we dial our time pods back to the good old days of the late 90s and early noughties and check in with our dear chum, Dr. Jess, Decaf Jedi Morissette, taking a break from posting soda machines on Twitter to talk about that weird period in time when Space Quest games were a rare and sought-after commodity.
Imagine you wanted to introduce a friend to the Space Quest series, and you wanted to purchase copies of the Space Quest game for this friend. How would you go about doing that today?
Seeing as I was a very young, I was going to say child, my 16, 17-year-old self would disagree vehemently that I was a child, but I was a child. I wouldn't actually buy the collection because then I'd have to ask my parents for pocket money. So I'd probably bring them over to my house and show them the game on my old 486 computer, which was state of the art at the time, I will have to say. No, wouldn't actually buy it for them.
Okay, but if you had to do it today, I mean, it's easy, right? You just point them toward GOG.com, or you'd point them toward Steam and say, yeah, if you've got like $10 to spare, you can just get the collection and play it, right?
Yeah.
What if I told you there was a time, circa 1999, 2000, the early 2000s, that Space Quest was essentially completely out of print? Sierra was no longer producing new copies of the collection. Space Quest 6 was no longer available for purchase anywhere. There was no digital distribution to speak of at the time. So there was this real period in the history of Space Quest fandom where if you didn't already own the games, there was really no legal way to get your hands on them.
See, that point completely passed me by. I mean, that point in time completely passed me by. Also, I did not give the answer you were expecting, did I?
No.
But no, that point in time completely passed me by, because what was this? Maybe 99, 2000, early 2000s.
Yeah, early 2000s especially. Yeah, essentially, we ended up in a situation where there were people that maybe had played one or two of the Space Quest games, wanted to experience the rest of the series, and there really weren't many ways to get their hands on them. I mean, you might get lucky and find them in a thrift shop or something like that. But if you went on eBay at the time, and this is again kind of hard to imagine in this world we live in today, used copies of the Space Quest collection that didn't have the box or the manuals or anything, were selling upwards of $100, sometimes as high as $200.
Jesus.
A pop. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a product that originally retailed at like $39 or $49 new, shrink wrapped.
Yeah.
Yeah, people were desperate to get a hold of it, and they were paying, 4 or 5 times what it originally retailed for.
Wow, I should really have taken better care of mine because, well, for several reasons. One of them is that I actually had Scott Murphy draw on one of them, and even so, I still managed to, beat that thing up, put it back together with sticky tape, and sit on it, and it is a complete mess. And if I'd known that was a collector's item back then, I would have put it in a glass cage somewhere where my brother couldn't get a hold of it.
Yeah, I briefly had, I had 2 copies of the collection. I had like the 20th anniversary edition or whatever, the really classy looking one with the blue cover, and then the one of Roger floating around in space also. And I was really tempted. It's like, I should just unload one of these things, score quick $200 and move on. But yeah, it was kind of insane. And of course, as someone who ran a website at the time, it also meant just daily I got emails from people saying, could you please provide a download for Space Quest 3? I can't get a hold of it anywhere. Could you please post Space Quest 5 somewhere on your website? So, I saw it on both ends. But yeah, at the time it was really it was difficult to track down copies, and there was a real collector's market going on eBay. And this was true for a lot of Sierra series. You would see the King's Quest collection or the Roberta Williams collection that included a few more of her titles going for similar prices. Even the Gabriel Knight collection for a while was going for high dollar. Yeah, it really took until later in the decade when I think Activision finally decided to do a quick cash grab and release their own collection that prices started to normalize a little bit. And actually just checked eBay today, and you can get the old collections for like $12 or $15. Because, of course, nowadays, unless you're getting a, shrink-wrapped, boxed copy for collecting purposes, you just go online, you download a copy for next to nothing. It's hard to imagine there was a time when people were paying those sorts of prices for it.
Oh, yeah. And I think given that the collection is now available for pristine digital download and such, I think we can safely out Franz, who ran SpaceQuest.net, who for the longest time did actually have the games available for download on a secret buried part of SpaceQuest.net, which he only gave out to people who were quote unquote worthy of it, in the sense that they wouldn't, shop it around to friends. It was a case of, either my collection disc is broken or something like that. He actually had the games, and also in different versions, which was very useful to us. Because the old collections, they came with the latest version of the games, but famously some Easter eggs in Space Quest 1 EGA were taken out because Ken Williams found them and sort of objected to them because they involved him. So that early version of Space Quest wasn't available unless you bought the original release of the game. So sorry, friends. We can say this safely now because that archive no longer exists. So there is no way you can Google your way to get any illegal copies of it. But
what if that archive does still exist? It's just even more secret than it was before.
Then in that case, I wouldn't know. I mean, the SpaceQuest.net archive certainly exists, and at current time of speaking, the guys from Andromeda are in the process of taking over SpaceQuest.net, with the caveat that the front page will now resemble SpaceQuest.net as it looked like in the early 2000s. But I'm sure as they're going over the files, if that secret little compartment of SpaceQuest.net still exists, I'm pretty sure they're just going to hit the delete button on that. And I haven't seen that download page for years and years and years and years.
Maybe you're just not one of the cool kids anymore.
That could be it. That could maybe I'm not in Francis' good graces anymore. I don't know. He does reply to my Facebook comments in a slightly snarky way, but I figured he's always been like that.
That's just friends being friends there.
Yeah. Okay. So well, yeah, that is actually pretty interesting. And the reason I say that completely, missed me by was that in the early 2000s, I was not really any longer a part of the Space Quest community, because after the cancellation of Space Quest 7, I had one of my famous teenage angsty meltdowns and just said, screw this, guys, I'm out of here, and just left in a huff and didn't really talk to any of you guys for, pretty much close to a decade, actually.
I just assumed you were like sitting in a dark room that whole time, like just raging out to some Scandinavian death metal or something.
Just shouting at the wall, really. I wasn't.
Yeah, it's like, I miss my buddy, but he seems to have just simply disappeared into anger rage.
Yeah, that was a tough time. I'm not proud of anything that happened back then.
If it makes you feel any better, I disappeared, a little bit later in that decade, and would just occasionally come back when someone would mention my name, and I would say something snarky and then disappear for like another 3 years. So, we all have our periods of drifting away from the community.
Yeah, and I did notice that none of us on our little lists here put down dissolution of the Space Quest community, or should we say dissolution and reemergence, because it does have a happy ending.
1999 to 2012.
Yeah. Complete because none of us want to go into that crap.
No, that was a dark time.
Yeah, so if you guys want to know more about that, you guys know where you can find us. The answer is Twitter. But let's just move on to the next one, shall we?
Such a pleasure. There are people who are down on this sort of nostalgic looking back, but I think it's fun and important, in terms of historical perspective. A lot of gaming history really isn't being archived that properly, and I know a lot of these tales of yore are really sort of falling by the wayside, so I think it's important to look back every once in a while and reminisce, especially for our Space Quest fans, who really were in many ways at the forefront of what future gaming communities became. I mean, we were the first to use forums, and we had a really, really good run back in the 90s and early noughties. So not to get all high and mighty, mind you, but we really need to take care of our history and, treasure these moments, both the good and the bad, so future generations can learn from our triumphs and failures. Wouldn't you agree, Cedric?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I would. I've been reading up on the traditions and history of the black metal community myself, and there are some very interesting customs that really speak to me. For instance, did you know there's a church in Nouvesvork?
Oh my god, you're not...
And it's made of wood. Look, it says right here on Wikipedia.
Ah, for the love of... You are not going over there to burn down a goddamn church, Cedric. I thought you were going over there to write lyrics. I thought you were in this for the art, not to commit hateful acts of arson.
Remind me again how those two are mutually exclusive.
Sometimes I don't even... Right. Well, seeing as we're already scraping the bottom of an already rancid barrel here, I don't see why we can't jump straight into the abyss and hear more from the memoirs of Pete Tolman. Yeah, let's do this. I can't see how this could possibly get any worse anyway.
This really is the collection that sells itself. Please listen to this excerpt from Disc 12, Womb Raider, Polygonorrhea Graphics. We join Pete as he tells us how the 3D revolution nearly destroyed his company.
Come on, mate, a bit more enthusiasm.
Well, how many of these have you actually sold?
We don't really keep strong tabs on that. I mean...
How many?
But it's not about that. It's about professional pride and courtesy, you know.
How many? How many? How many? How many?
We pay.
Well, you don't pay me a lot, which suggests you don't sell that many.
Okay, not a lot, but that's not really the point.
If you paid me better...
Join a union, then.
I can't. I can't. Nobody will pay me union rates.
Well, I don't see how your lack of professional pride or ability is really our problem.
Look, there's a lot going on at home, okay? I'm tired. We've been doing this for 8 weeks now.
You didn't find those other weeks, so I'm beginning to think that this is deliberate now.
Well, I
Leave
was
your
excited
problems
at the
mate.
beginning.
That's what they call your problems.
No, I'm just trying... No. Fine, let's just get this done. I bet Gary Owens never had to put up with this.
Gary Owens was a professional.
F*** you. Please listen to this excerpt from Disc 12, Womb Raider, Polygonorrhea Graphics. We join Pete as he tells us how the 3D revolution nearly destroyed his company.
3D was designed for one thing and one thing only. Norks. Jugs. Hooters. Double WMDs. Sweater stretchers. Pillows. Knockers. Tits. Suppose really that's 3D being designed for two things. 3D was designed for two things and two things only. Norks. Jugs. Hooters. Double WMDs. Sweater stretchers. Pillows. Knockers. Tits. The 90s being what they were, this really wasn't an issue. Tomb Raider had enormous success with the genre, and good luck to 'em, I say. People often ask me, they say, Pete, are you annoyed that they did your shtick by selling softcore porn to kids? And I say, no mate, no I'm not. In fact, they've done us proud. To make an adventure game sell with very few adventure elements, solely down to two core features, well, that's something we need to embrace, not belittle. And they weren't belittle, were they, eh? Jesus. Shame about Angelina Jolie. 3D was a problem though. So few people knew how to use it that if you worked in the sector you could basically name your price, or at least they did to me. And the cost of hardware, f***ing hell mate. Our suppliers in Croatia couldn't keep up. And since the fall of the wall, their willingness to do me a solid and give us free shit had all but gone. Nah, we were dying on our arses, mate. There was no hope. We decided to go even further than EDOS and make Womb Raider. Fully naked chick running around ancient Mesopotamian ruins trying to get pregnant. It did not sell well. Not at all, in fact. I think Lara Croft may have saturated the market, like she saturated so many Kleenexes in 1996. That, and we weren't allowed to sell the game in the EU or North America due to, and I quote, obscenity and pornography legislation. Landed the free my arse. In any event, it seems Scott and Mark haven't learnt from my mistakes. No, not only are they doing full 3D, God knows how much that cost, but it must be even harder now than it was 20 years ago. I mean, I assume it's harder now than it was 20 years ago. I haven't really tried. I heard that you can do it if you get Blender and Unity. But, I mean, damn it, I'll be damned if I have Unity in my office. No f***ing union is ever getting into my company. Nah. Now, Scott and Mark, they're doing a full 3D adventure with, and I cannot stress this enough, dear listener, and it breaks my heart to tell you, precious little tit and or fanny. Still, each their own. I mean, the screenshots, they look okay. There's a few updates on their Kickstarter page, but they're not responding to any of my letters or my tweets. I've been at Scott and Mark for the last 6 months. Maybe even since the first day of the company opening. There's 2 guys from Andromeda business, but they're not listening to me. I reckon it's that guy that's running it, keeping them away from me. The f***ing Greek, what's his name? Christoph Papadopoulos. Yeah, he's Greek, yeah, look it up. Yeah, bloody charlatan he is. Just released a video with Ken Allen, promoting this music that they're putting in this new space venture game. Yeah, that Ken Allen. So you just ask yourself, what is a Greek doing with Ken Allen, right? Take a look at that. Then take a look at the footage of 9/11. I'm just asking questions, mate. I'm just asking questions. That's what the lawyer told me to say, wasn't it? Yeah, just asking questions. Well, not getting into trouble, not like last time.
I was wrong. It could get worse. All right, time to liven things up a bit then, because I had the absolute pleasure of talking about 2 of my favorite things, horror movies and Space Quest, with the one and only Agustín Cordes, ringleader of the Argentinian-based development studio Senscape. They were responsible for the cult hit Scratches back in 2006 and the freeware love letter to the adventure game community Serena in 2014, and they've been hard at work putting together their most ambitious project, Asylum, since 2010, with a successful Kickstarter campaign in 2013 to speed up development. And, Agustín knows his horror. Frankly, the man is like a walking horror encyclopedia. And here's a little behind-the-scenes scoop for you. When it's movie night in the Space Quest historian household, it's usually, in fact, damn near always, horror movies. Because I love horror movies, my wife loves horror movies, and Agustín loves horror movies. But what I hadn't expected was that his favorite game series was not a horror game, but Space Quest. None other than Space Quest. So it was a tremendous pleasure to have this chat with him. And it is my great pleasure now to introduce the man with impeccable taste and the best accents in all of adventure game development land, Mr. Agustín Cordes.
I've played a bit of Scratches. Sadly, I haven't actually finished it, but it does, do a very, very good job of, putting you in the sort of loneliness, walking around this house. Anything could jump out at you at any moment, although nothing will, at least not as far as I got anyway. I hear people are like getting heart attacks from, simply opening doors. What's all that about?
Indeed, yeah, it was a game about just the atmosphere, and the tension. And some reviewers and players complain that nothing really happens, and it's true, nothing actually happens. Well, I guess you should finish the game to if you want something to happen, something pretty interesting. But yeah, it was a pleasure to create that game. It was a fantastic moment in my life in general. I really, really enjoyed it, and it's I'm thrilled to hear that people keep rediscovering and enjoying the game all these years. Actually, this month is the 10th anniversary of Scratches. Would you believe that?
No, really? Is it that old?
Yes, of the release of Scratches. It was March 2006, the English version.
Dear God, I had no idea it had that many years on it, because when I sat down to play it, admittedly that was over a year ago, but when I sat down to play it, I thought, wow, this looks really, really nice. I mean, this doesn't. It certainly doesn't look 10 years old.
It is very old, actually. Yeah.
Oh, and it runs on your own open source adventure game engine, named after some cuddly little creature that you might find in Lovecraft texts.
Actually, not really. The Scratches and Serena does run in Dagon or Dagon. I don't know exactly what's the best pronunciation of that either. Let's just call him Dagon. I hope he's fine with that.
Isn't it a sheep?
Serena does run.
Sorry.
Whoa, I hope not. I don't know. I hope we're not embarrassing him or she, her. Wow.
Oh,
anyway.
Sorry. Well, I was watching a couple of Lovecraft-inspired tales where they have, particularly the movie Dagon, where the sea creatures are all females, topless Spanish females for some reason.
Huh.
Never mind. Do go on.
Anyway. Scratches was actually produced on an engine called Scream, which was, you could say, a very old relative of Dagon. It was also open source, but sadly the engine isn't around anymore. But anyway, Dagon, the current version, does actually everything Scream used to do, and it performs much better even. So, but yeah, as you know, we are developing Asylum on Unity now. I'm going to have some news about that, but developing your own engine is not something I can recommend to small teams. Not anymore, definitely.
Oh yeah, because I do remember Asylum started out in the Dagon engine, and then you decided for, I guess, probably performance and porting things, you decided to sort of merge it into Unity. So it's not just running Unity; it's running Dagon inside of Unity somehow.
Something like that. It wasn't just about the performance. It was in part about the performance, the portability, but also about the things we needed to do. The game requires that we implement real-time 3D objects, and doing actual 3D, it's just a pain in the ass. Sorry, can I swear in your podcast? I'm really sorry.
You can swear all you want. I will have to bleep the harder ones. And I'm just going to bleep that. But
ass, is it okay to say ass?
Ass is fine. Damn is fine. Goddamn is even fine. I think someone said twat on an earlier show, and I'm not going to bleep that either.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. Well, he was Scottish, so.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, no, I was digging my own grave, trying to do everything we need to do in our own engine. So I took the very, very difficult decision to let it go. We are not abandoning Dagon. I am planning to support it for more, minimalistic adventures like Scratches, maybe, or Serena. But it was just an ordeal to develop Asylum with such an engine.
Yeah, because it's a huge-ass game, isn't it? Asylum, I mean.
Huge. And we have been very, very stubborn, and we wanted from the first moment to have, really lifelike and photorealistic characters in the game, and doing humans, animated humans, is such a pain in the ass. Yeah.
Which I guess is why in Scratches, at least as far as I've played, the only human interaction you have is when you call your publisher over the phone, who must by the later chapters must be getting tired of your asses, doesn't he?
He does, yes, he does. And yes, that was, if I may say so, really a brilliant decision to do not show any humans in Scratches. It was a very low-budget game that, because of the setting and the story and the circumstances of the game, it worked quite well, and it was cheap to do.
What I'm going to talk, ladies and gentlemen listening to this show, the reason I invited Agustín aboard is because I'm a huge horror fan myself. I don't just play Space Quest all day, although I happily could. But when it's time to enjoy some passive entertainment, my wife and I always go, on Netflix and go right for the horror section. So we watch an incredible amount of horror. And so I'm really, really interested to talk to someone who knows his horror, who knows, what makes a good horror games. Of course, we will talk about Space Quest, don't worry. But
yes, please.
But, you'd be amazed. You're the most enthusiastic guy whenever I say Space Quest. Some of the other guests have gone. Some of the other guests is like gone. I haven't actually played Space Quest. Oh dear. And they're very apologetic. But anyway, sound design in horror is usually brought up as one of the most fundamental things that to do good horror, you have to have really, really good sound design. I mean, what kind of what kind of sound design works best in your opinion? And I am going with this, trust me, but I just want to get a little baseline here.
Yeah, when we first started working on Scratches, I had this very specific idea of the game. I wanted to make it like very, again, minimalistic, but even extremely minimalistic, with very little sound, music, just you and the graphics, so to speak. And when we virtually met Seller of Rats, the guy that ended doing the soundtrack for the game, he actually suggested a different approach. And I always credit him with that decision, because what he suggested was fundamental to pull out the very effective atmosphere in Scratches. So I would go with, at least in the kind of horror games I like to make, I would go with a cinematic approach to sound and music. I just can't think of the sound as a separate thing. I just think of music, sound, and how everything connects together. When you first enter the house in Scratches, it's very atmospheric, but because the music is like, carries you through this environment where you are just seeing it for the first time, but the beautiful composition, so nostalgic and evoking past things which are unknown to you, at least in the first moment, it just works. You immediately think like you know the house. I think this is what many players felt with Scratches, this strange sense of familiar when you start playing the game. This is why many felt that they belonged in that house. And sound, of course, sound effects, footsteps, rain, these strange sounds you hear, something unidentifiable. Yes, that works wonders as well.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you start out the game, I mean, the house is not a foreboding thing. It's somewhere you've gone to exactly get some, peace and quiet and all that. And the sound is very like, if I recall correctly, there's a little piano melody running in the background, but not too intrusive. It's not like something you hum along to.
Exactly. And then and
then once nighttime hits, then it starts swelling a bit and getting a bit creepy, some low rumbling and stuff like that.
Exactly. The trick is to shift attention, sort of. First, you allow the player to become intimate with, with the place. He or she enters the house, listens to the music, becomes acquainted, and then the music stops, and that's when you allow to the rest of the environment sink in. With that moment of silence, you take advantage and include some really unnerving sounds. So it's like a dance, a bit of music, a bit of silence, some sound, then some more dramatic music. It has to be, it has to work really well to be effective.
Some of the things that really annoy me about horror's sound design is, of course, the musical sting. Whenever something scary just moves past in the background, you hear this doom, like the soundtrack goes, "Look, did you see that?"
Yeah. Well, we actually did that, but you can count the times we did it with one hand maybe. Mm-hmm. It's actually twice. We have like 2 jump scares in Scratches, and just because you never know when they're going to happen, they are very sparingly used. I think that is effective. The problem is when you overuse everything, right? Mm-hmm. Or when you see a monster and you see it constantly. The first time, maybe it works. The second, maybe again. By the 10th time you see the monster, it's just a monster. It's not scary anymore.
Exactly. I mean, that was one of the reasons why Ridley Scott's Alien worked so well, and he was very deliberate about that. Mm-hmm. Was that you don't show you barely see the monster in that movie actually, because if you see it, Turns out it's just a guy in a suit, but you just see little glimpses of it, and the same thing goes for sound. If you keep letting the viewer know you're supposed to be scared right now, then that's lazy.
Exactly. Yeah. Indeed.
Which is, I suppose, a good segue into just sort of a getting our feel around the horror genre. I was gonna probe your brain a bit about the elements of good horror, like do's and don'ts. What makes a good horror? What makes bad horror? And I suppose some of the do's in my on my list would be the use of silence, for instance. Because if you got silence on the soundtrack, then your eyes are glued to the screen. You got like a static shot of something, and you just know something's going to be moving in the background. And then because the soundtrack doesn't give you any indication of what's about to happen, you just sit there and think, okay, anything could happen.
Agreed. I agree. I definitely agree. I think the most important thing, the thing you must strive for, is to create a convincing and engrossing atmosphere. But we keep using the word atmosphere as if atmosphere this, atmosphere that. But my definition of atmosphere is just a harmonious integration, so to speak, of graphics, music, sound, and narrative as well. It all has to come together, as when that moment when you first entered in the Blackwood Manor in Scratches, you have these evocative graphics, the nostalgic music, some very strange sounds in the distance, and the narration of the protagonist that carries you through that moment. That is, a very effective way to set up the everything that happens in the game for players. And when you want to smack them with a really shocking and scary sequence, you have their attention. So the atmosphere has to work. This combination of everything in the game, it just has to work. I remember with Cellar of Rats, what we did to ensure that the music was fitting for the environments. We first worked on the graphics, and then we sent Cellar of Rats the preliminary versions of graphics so that he could compose the game after what you were seeing on screen, taking into account the colors. And if you think about it, it actually makes a lot of sense. People tend to associate colors with certain particular sounds. Green, maybe with some organic sounds, bubbling things, the pastel colors or more sepia tones with earthly sounds, and that is critical, critical to make that work. As for the don'ts, well, I'm not very fond of jump scares. At least not when the game depends on the jump scares, right? If you have to do them, like we did, but you have like these very specific instances of jump scares, they can work amazingly well. If your game is just a series of jump scare after jump scare, it's just going to get boring, And the most important thing, in addition to atmosphere for me, is to know where you're going. Just make sure that you know the end of the story, that you have everything clear, and that you are working towards that goal. I think that something that can kill a horror game and the lasting impression is the final act, because it tends to be build up until the climax, and if you don't have that climax figured out, it's just going to be pointless, all of it. So know the ending, or at least try to know the ending and what you're trying to do in the game, and works towards that.
Yeah, I completely agree, because a lot of horror movies that I've watched and a lot of horror games that I've played as well, they keep building up to this suspenseful climax where you know something is about to go down, and then it just feels like the author is somehow trying to top all the scares that they've been throwing at you so far. And you just sit there and go, well, you kind of already did that. It's just the same thing, just times 20 or whatever.
Well, sure. I mean, if your big climax is the revelation of a monster, it is valid. Okay, cool. It can work if the monster is really cool. But make sure that throughout the game, like in Alien, you're only showing, you're only suggesting the monster in a way. That's one way to make an effective scare.
Yeah, and Alien also works because the monster is unpredictable, and that was another thing. Another thing about good elements of horror is also, of course, the identification with characters. You want to see them come out good, because I've watched a lot of horror movies where you just don't give a crap about the characters, where they're just like just people shoved into a house and then scary stuff happens to them, and you just go, why should I care if they live or die?
Yeah, and games have a great advantage in that regard. When you see a horror movie, you're always saying, "Oh, come on, you can't do such a stupid thing." That's why the characters are unbelievable, because they don't react in a logical way. But in games, it's the player who is performing the interactions. And there's this I don't know if you got to that point in the game, there's this famous sequence in Scratches where the player does something really stupid, like, come on, you should have left the house hours ago. Why are you going to do that? But it's the player who actually wants to see what happens. So if your setup works and you make it, you make a convincing case for that particular interaction, it can work wonders. It really did in Scratches, even though it was a really a really illogical moment, it worked.
You also mentioned that putting them in situations where they sort of trapping them in a situation where they'd really have no other recourse but to go ahead instead of just heading for the nearest door. I don't know if there's any examples of that in Scratches, other than the house being pretty much the only place you have to go. But I've seen some horror games, particularly first-person horror games like Fear, for instance, FEAR, if you want to get the punctuation in there. They sort of lock you in a place, like the door shut behind you and in front of you, and then you just go, right, now please witness this scary scene unfold before you, and once you're done, we'll open the door for you again.
Oh yeah, no. There's definitely nothing like that in Scratches and not in Asylum. And there's a very important reason for that, because you always want to put control in the hands of the player. So just let them do whatever they want. What you are doing is just setting everything up to make your big scary moment work, but you never take away control from them. That is what in Scratches didn't work well during the first day, where I wanted to ensure players visited the specific locations in the house. So I was like, okay, now look for candles and try looking at the fuses, and it was just chore after chore. In the second day, though, everything was enabled. You had access pretty much to the whole house, and all I did was just leave these two seeds, two very hints of hidden things in the house, and I just left players to their own devices. That's my learning experience, and what I'm trying to do, perfectly in Asylum. That's what works when players are in control, or they think they're in control. When you make the jump scare obvious, even obvious that something's about to happen, it doesn't work really.
No, exactly, and then it becomes a cliche. And actually, let's sidestep for a bit and just talk about our favorite horror cliches. I mean, I got a few here. I've actually got 3 here, and I think I'm just gonna rattle one off, and then if you've got any, please jump in. My favorite one of all is, of course, the mirror in the bathroom. The protagonist standing in front of a mirror in the bathroom. For some reason, they all have these medicine cabinets in America where there's mirrors on them. I don't have one. But yeah, they stand in front of it, they open it, they get something out of the cabinet, they close it, and boom, there's someone in the doorway behind them.
Well, as a fan of slasher films, my favorite cliche has to be when the killer is supposedly dead and the last girl or boy approaches him and you say, please don't go near the killer, just run away. And they approach the killer and he resurrects at the last minute.
Yeah.
But it's just a thing of the genre, and I really appreciate it. I'm a huge fan of Friday the 13th. I'm sure that's going to disappoint some fans, but I love Jason Voorhees.
Well, I mean, he's a staple of it. I mean, if you've got like Halloween, Friday the 13th, even movies like Hellraiser, where you just know the second that this dude pops up and you shoot him, you stab him, you cut his head off, whatever, he's gonna come back, right at the end. We all know it, but
of course.
The other one I have is, of course, Ghost Children. For some reason, there's just something absolutely terrifying. And I know it's a cliche. I mean, we've all seen The Shining. We've all seen the little twins holding hands at the end of the corridor. Still, they creep me the hell out. Every time you hear like the laugh of a child somewhere off in the distance, and there's not supposed to be any children around, that just freaks me out.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. The things that most freaks me out in horror movies, I'm not easily scared, at least not any these days. I used to be scared. I think ghosts or the supernatural are the things that have scared me the most. For example, in Poltergeist, some scenes have, I was terrified as a kid at the scene in which they record the stairway, and they see the the souls of the dead people that used to inhabit that place. They saw them descending through the stairway. That's a really scary moment for me. And another movie that has scared me a lot is The Changeling with George C. Scott. It's actually a movie that has influenced Scratches a lot.
Which is terrible, because I haven't actually seen that one. I really should.
I really strongly recommend that movie. It's a really masterful ghost picture. And of course, basements. Basements are my favorite location. And
I've noticed that, yeah.
House by the Cemetery by the late Italian director Lucio Fulci. I love the final sequence, even though it scared me to death as a kid, and it takes place in a basement. So that's very possibly another hugely influential movie for Scratches.
Okay, so let's move on to Space Quest.
Okay. Space Quest.
Again, you are by far the guest who has shown the most enthusiasm for talking about this. So I gathered you are quite familiar with, or perhaps even slightly infatuated with, Space Quest.
It's my favorite adventure game series.
No kidding.
Far.
Really?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. For sure. Picture me when I was around 10 years old, maybe a bit earlier even.
Still
I was
handsome.
a huge fan of... No, I was very geeky. I'm still geeky. I was playing games like Saxon, Jumpman, Space Invaders, Digger, and I loved gaming, but when I first played King's Quest, it was my first touch with adventures. I was blown away, I was blown away by the by what games were capable of doing. I was also an avid reader, even at that young age, and my first impression of adventures is, wow, this is precisely like an interactive book. I love this. I want to do this. But fantasy wasn't my favorite genre. My favorite genres were horror and science fiction. And for some reason, horror wasn't, very popular in the 80s, in games at least. I mean, you have The Uninvited, which I learned of many years after, and I can't think of any, notable horror game from the 80s.
No, me neither.
Maybe there is.
Which is strange because there were a lot of good horror movies made in the 80s.
Exactly, but horror. I mean, the game that really kickstarted the horror genre in video games, for me at least, from my perspective, was Darkseid, and that was only in 1992. So that was, I mean, you do have the Larkin Horror, you have The Uninvited, but they were like, not very influential games. But anyway, I wasn't a big fan of fantasy. So imagine my joy when I stumble upon Space Quest 2, which is basically King's Quest in space. I mean, I was ecstatic. This is the best moment of my life, and I actually have great, really fond memories of playing that game, which I used to play with my father. And we solved it without any walkthrough, just playing together, dedicating to the game maybe 1 or 2 hours each day, and it was fantastic. All the references to great science fiction movies, books. It was amazing. So then I stumbled into Space Quest 3, and that became one of possibly my favorite adventure game. And so I really enjoy the series.
And also, you're not again, the thing that I don't like about fantasy is all this, I am now going to save the kingdom, I am this big burly knight on a white horse, and
you are the anti-hero, the guy nobody cares about, and then you are suddenly thrown into this swashbuckling space adventure. It was great. I mean, Roger Wilco as an adventure game character, it's just perfect. It's just an amazing character.
Well, so would you say? Oh, you kind of already answered this. Space Quest 3 would be your favorite Space Quest game.
Oh yeah. It has perhaps 2 of my favorite moments in games. The ending is perfect. I love the ending. It's one of the most fantastic endings in any game.
It really gets your heart pumping, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's it's sort of anticlimactic in a way that just perfectly executed. Like, oh wow, and the 2 guys go back to Sierra, and Roger Wilco asks Ken, and hey, can I be part of this too? No. And that what? That it sucks being Roger Wilco, but you love him and you are him, and it's a strange relationship you have with this character. I just love it. But the other fantastic moment is when you get the Aluminium Mallard running and you escape the freighter, and suddenly a whole a new scope opens up for you. You have several new locations and planets to explore, and wow, it's like I'm in my own ship and I can travel to any planet I want. I mean, there were 3 of them, right? 3 locations, but anyway, that moment was incredible.
Yeah, I love.
And I don't think any Space Quest did that. I mean, like, you are in control. Oh, well, Space Quest 5 did it. Yeah, like you are in control of a ship and you can choose any planet that you can land upon.
And I think the reason why Space Quest 5 and certainly Space Quest 6 are sort of anomalies in the Space Quest pantheon, or whatever you want to call it, is because Roger became more of a hero kind of guy, and he became more of this chivalrous person in Space Quest 5. It's suddenly he's being a captain has suddenly gone to his head, even though he's not a very good captain. It's suddenly gone a bit to his head. And in Space Quest 6, he just flat out goes, "I have to rescue Stellar. She's my friend." It's like, what? Where did this come from?
That is one reason, but another reason for me, at least my personal reason, if you wish, is that from Space Quest 1 to 4, you see Roger Wilco as a projection of you, of the player, because he's more of a blank template. He doesn't speak much. It's always the narrator that carries you through the game. So when, at least for me, when Roger Wilco started having a more defined personality, it sort of ruined the game for me, at least, for the expectations I had of Space Quest. I wanted Roger Wilco to be that sort of, one-dimensional character, and it's fine because Space Quest wasn't much about the characters. It was about the locations and all the crazy stuff going on.
And being in space.
And being in space, exactly. So I didn't care much about that. So when they started, shifted the focus in that front, I don't know, the game lost its charm for me. But again, it's a very personal appreciation of Space Quest. Okay.
But I do agree. For my money, at least, and this makes me quite unpopular with some of the Space Quest fans, is that I pretty much view Space Quest 1 to 4 as the sort of canonical ones, and Space Quests 5 and 6, good games as they are in their own right, I suppose, they're not. They don't feel as Space Questy, and I think you just hit the nail on the head there. It is because you stop projecting yourself into Roger's shoes, and you become sort of the puppeteer of a character.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And for some adventures, it can work great. But in the canon of Space Quest, and at least what Space Quest used to be, it just didn't feel right. I mean, for example, in Larry, it works great. I mean, the better character Larry becomes, the more enjoyable the game becomes. I mean, it's hard to argue that Larry 7 is the highest point of the series, along with Larry 3 maybe. But that worked great. I don't know. For some reason, really difficult to describe in Space Quest, it didn't quite work.
So the last point of order, just to sort of tie a neat bow around all of this, is of course Space Quest 4, which marries two of I can tell kindred spirits, two of our favorite things. It marries science fiction, humor, and horror, because Space Quest 4 does have some really horrific elements. I mean, just off the bat, you've got the zombie and the supercomputer, and you've got all of these. It's one long trying to get out of a deadly situation after another. So, what did you think of the sort of horror influences in Space Quest 4?
I appreciated it back then. I mean, I have replayed the game lots of times. I didn't quite think about, seeing those sequences as horror, actually. Now that you mention it, yeah, right, the zombie is scary, but maybe it was a consequence of the better graphics, because, I don't know, in Space Quest 3, you have these, the strange hanging creatures in Fleabooth. And then in Space Quest 2, while you don't see it, or you see it once, okay, you have the octopus in the caves. So maybe, if Space Quest 2 had been produced with better graphics, high definition graphics, more colors, maybe it will look more horrifying. But yeah, it's true. You could say that because of the better production, Space Quest 4 is the scariest of the Space Quests.
Could be.
Maybe? Yeah. I don't know. Could be. Yeah.
But also interesting, we didn't really touch on, gory stuff, bloody stuff and such when we were talking about horror in general. But, Space Quest is pretty well known for being really gory at times.
Yeah.
Drinking the acid. My favorite of all this, of course, falling into the lava pit in Space Quest 3. That death scene of, the skin melting off his face is just, Jesus Christ.
Oh, yeah. Many people hate Sierra games, criticize them for the death sequences. I think it's what made them, even more enjoyable. Like, okay, let me try this really stupid thing and see what happens. And then, you're like you say, you drink acid. I mean, which adventure game allows you to drink acid? That's really the charm of Sierra games, why I love them so much. Even if you sacrifice good design, yeah, whatever. It's just fun, It's really, really fun.
And what's one of your favorite death scenes in Space Quest?
Let me think. I want to give you a really good answer. Possibly, it should be. Trying to think. Probably one in Space Quest 3. Well, falling in lava was awesome in Ortega. Or not wearing your underwears.
Oh yeah.
I
think the one where you pick up a sharp piece of metal on the garbage freighter and he just dances around, spurting blood until he falls to the ground. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. That's a great one. Yeah.
I didn't find that until very late. Sorry.
No, it's very possibly one of those. Yeah, one of those. Space Quest 2, you can die, by really silly actions, but the death sequences aren't as memorable as in 3 or 4 maybe. So yeah.
I suppose we should leave off by you telling the fine folks out there how to, follow you around, what they should be on the lookout for, and such. Closing remarks.
Lots of people I know are expecting Asylum, and I have been very, very quiet about its development, but things are about to get more exciting from now on. We are preparing many things, news, stuff to show you, news about the release date, hopefully. So
they're probably out when you're listening to this. Sorry.
Maybe one of them. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, but I'm not sure if a release date yet. But we are working on that. I promise we are working on that. So stay tuned for news. And there's really cool stuff coming from Senscape this year. I promise.
Ooh. And if you wanted to keep up with the Cordeses and the Senscape family, how would you go about it?
It's very easy because you just follow Senscape on Facebook or Twitter. It's just twitter.com/Senscape or Facebook.com/Senscape, or you follow me on Twitter. It's more difficult because you need to know how to spell my name, but I don't know, just Google Twitter Agustín Cordes, and maybe you will find me
without the accent, because you can't have accent.
Without the accent, no, yeah.
Oh. Well,
and it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed the talk. I hope you enjoyed the talk as well.
I did indeed. I'm actually very, very honored that you agreed to be on the show. This was absolutely fantastic. I love talking to people who know their horror stuff and know we seem to have very similar ideas about what makes good horror. We love ghost stories, and I was actually unaware that Space Quest was your favorite game. So that's a big old plus in my book. Thank you so much for taking the time to have this chat with me, sir.
Thank you. I truly enjoyed it. So we'll meet again in the Twitter sphere.
Oh, yes. Oh, I love the way you said that. Ooh.
See you later.
I will see you later. Bye.
Bye.
And that is all the time we have on this episode for Mr. Cordes, sadly, but fret not, you can listen to the full unedited interview where there is, trust me, a lot more juicy goodness over on mixcloud.com/SpaceQuestHistorian. Right, well, that is all the time we have on the show for today. Please, if you've enjoyed this episode, do consider going to patreon.com/SpaceQuestHistorian and throw a penny or two into the jar, and check out the website over at SpaceQuestHistorian.com, where there's a lot more cool stuff waiting for you. So until...
You feted chill! With my art I shall call scornful attention to that wretched filth that infests this decaying world like you!
Oh, come on, dude, it's black metal. How much art are we really talking here?
That's the typical attitude of you sickening posers. What with your jogging suits and skateboards and hardcore metal ideals, this has nothing to do with black. Why don't you go listen to your Nickelbacks and your Good Charlottes and your Linkin Parks, and let us true artists do our thankless tasks of portraying the world as it really is.
Oh, hey, I'll let you know. I don't listen
Spare me your driveling excuses, emo. Go tell it to your Avril Lavigne posters. We must take the scene to what it was in the past. Dead died for this cause, and I have declared war! Death to the trendy hardcore people!
That is it. Show's over, so help me. I'm gonna find a way to get in there and throttle your feathery ass if it's the last thing I do. Come here, Cedric. Come here.
Call that metal! That James Mulvale is such a poser!
For the love of... You're not going over there to burn down a goddamn church, Cedric. I thought you were going over there to... For the love of... You are not going over there to burn down a goddamn church, Cedric. I thought you were going over there... Oh, for the love of... Look, you're not going over there to burn down a goddamn church, Cedric. You know, I thought you were going... Why can't I say this?